Oh, hey there. Me? Well, I was looking for dessert and I thought maybe Castella or Casutera. Maybe you've seen any of the recent videos that actively feature it. Most of them are jiggly cutting videos with terms like aesthetic or ASMR, with some of them reaching to as close to 40 million views. A good portion of them take place at Taiwanese bakeries though, even though it's a traditionally Japanese dessert. And how exactly is it traditionally Japanese? It doesn't really fit in with things like the image of like dango or... So how did Castella get to Taiwan, and even more so, how did it get to Japan? In the 16th century, the Portuguese arrived in the port city of Nagasaki, and with them they brought Christianity and guns, but also a cake called bolo de Castel, quite literally cake from Castile, which would go on to be relatively popular, with one of the first bakeries serving it opening in 1624. Castella had considerable staying power, but unfortunately in 1637, the shogunate wasn't particularly fond of the recent rebellions that had been inspired by Christians, so they were expelled in 1637. The priests along with the Portuguese. So how exactly did Castella arrive in Taiwan? In 1868, the shogunate came to an end, and Japan underwent a series of reforms known as the Meiji Restoration. During this period of time, Japan wanted to immediately become a modern world power. So what exactly is it that all of the modern world powers all shared amongst each other? Let's see. Americans love their hot dogs. The Germans sure do love their sauerkraut. And the English really are all for their mustard. No, that's not it. What was it? Empire. Japan's early imperial efforts were fairly successful, and in their first victory against the Chinese in the First Sino-Japanese War against King China, they received Taiwan in the Treaty of Shimonoseki as a concession. Taiwan's status as a colony under the Japanese left it in a rather strange place. No matter the efforts of the Taiwanese to assimilate to Japanese culture, their deep cultural relationship with the Chinese often led to that being unrecognized. And as for the Chinese on their part, well, now that Taiwan was a colony under Japan, wherever Taiwanese individuals went in China, they were met with a relatively high degree of suspicion. This is fairly well documented in books that discuss or are from the period, like Wu Zhaolu's Orphan of Asia. So even after the Japanese left Taiwan, a few of the things that they brought with them retained their popularity, such as tempura and, of course, Castella. So what exactly is the difference between a Japanese Castella and a Taiwanese Castella? Well, I followed a relatively traditional recipe for the Japanese Castella, and as you can see, it's relatively similar in structure to something like a traditional European sweetbread, like a panettone, whereas the Taiwanese Castella is more like a sponge cake. So how exactly that comes down is the egg whites. For the Japanese Castella, I beat the eggs together, whereas for the Taiwanese Castella, I beat them separately until the egg whites had reached stiff peaks and then incorporated them into the batter. It's what produces the distinctive bounce on Taiwanese Castella that has led it to such worldwide acclaim. So next time you go for a piece of Castella, some chocolate, or even some sugar, read a bit beyond the label and ask yourself, does this have a violent history of imperialism and exploitation? Still read the label though.